Good. I hope you remember it's happened 2 weeks time that we try to analyze the first chapter of formation of world economy. The first chapter formed in Middle Ages. High Middle Ages is the central part of the Middle Ages, and on this period organized a very special structure, early phase of formation of world economy, with two poles, northern pole and the southern pole. The southern pole was basically a distribution-based economy because imported the spice from the island of Indian Ocean and distributed. Almost as a luxury trade. I hope you remember the value of 1 kilogram pepper was 1 kilogram gold. Therefore, it's a typical luxury trade, but the most important peculiarity, a distribution, not a production, a distribution. Trade-based economy. And the northern pole, it's an industrial economy based to the textile industry and interaction between Baltic region and Low Country. Between these poles, the northern industrial pole and the southern trading pole connected one fair chain series. This is the first of Champagne and Brie. In the last lecture, I closed to presentation of Champagne and Brie. In the last week, I spoke about this was of chain of fairs, like a festival. Quite closed, not so large area, organized a continuous fair series whole of the years. A 30 kilometers large area organized and changed for different settlement fairs 2 month long period and moved to long period new places. This is some form of rotation. The first Lagny-sur-Marne, the second one Bar-sur-Aube, Provence-Troyes, two settlement repeated. It is fair series. And why so interesting? Because centralized, this was the heart of contemporary European economy. If somebody would like to meet the leader of European economy, it's a very simple option, necessary travel to area of Champagne and Brie. Which were the most important innovation of that? The most important innovation, construction of network of merchant houses. Before the revolution of Champagne and Brie, before revolution of Champagne and Brie, personally, the head of merchant houses traveled one place to other. It's very dangerous. Why? Because not only the traders specialized to the luxury trade, but the criminals too. Therefore, not by chance, each very rich trader wrote testimony before each travel, because very high the danger killed by criminals. A network of agencies simplified these affairs, because the head of merchant houses not necessarily travel one place to other. It was enough manipulate and communicate with help of agents and the local agencies. This was the first network system, trading network system of Europe. The second one, this was the last sentence on the last week, artificial money. Artificial money. We are living recently in the age of artificial money. Generally, our financial interaction based to credit card or smartphone, no direct using of notes and coins because very fun. But the age of artificial money started even in the 13th century. Why so important? Because the contemporaries, I hope you remember the rank list of civilization. The first one, China. The second one, India. The third one, Muslim world. And Europe only the fourth, according to rank list of development level. Which is the consequences? If European trader would like to buy Chinese or Indian products, necessarily pay by coins, gold ducats or silver ducats. Therefore, century by century, from the Middle Ages until the modern time, there is a precious metal pump. It's pushing out the precious metal to Asia. Therefore, for European trade, there are a shortage of precious metal. Therefore, necessary to make innovation, artificial money. Artificial money means this is a paper, and I write to this paper its value 100 golden ducats. And everybody accepts in the trading community. Why? Because the confidence so high to each other. This is one of the most important peculiarity of the European evolution. A confidence to each other. Because making a confidence, it's good job. It's good job. It's possible, on the last week I spoke about a very early artificial intelligence avatar test, psychological test I spoke about. Yes or no? At the beginning of second decade of 21st century, tested the different behavior profile avatar. The selfish avatar, for example, victim type avatar, and play in cyberspace, played one to other, different profile of humans. And who was the winner? The avatar who offered the confidence for everybody, but only one, once. And if somebody manipulate, cancel the communication. Therefore, using the confidence is very important. Every level of human interaction. But if somebody manipulate and fail and somehow not serve the confidence, necessary excluding from the interaction. This is the best profile. In Europe, artificial money was a good verification of efficient apply of confidence. I spoke about which are a peculiarity of European civilization. For example, you remember the heavy plow when I spoke about the evolution of agrarian revolution, which is the most important institutional or behavior peculiarity of agrarian revolution. No household, no peasant household enough drought power anymore for heavy plow. Therefore, necessary to interact one to other. Interaction and confidence to each other. And this kind of behavior started even in the Middle Ages. Okay, and very important to mention, the best period, artificial money based on the confidence. And somebody is jealous, not accept the confidence on his or her side. Therefore, the rate of artificial money changed decade by decade. But the highest one, and the best period, 17 times more artificial money used in European economy in the Middle Ages than the real coins. 17 times more. Therefore, the flexibility of the medieval economy based on artificial money. Okay, look at the next one. A clearing system. As I mentioned, in the precious metal pump pushed out the precious metal toward Asia, India and China, therefore had a shortage of precious metal money, real money, coins. Therefore used technologies and techniques avoid the direct cash paying. Clearing was a typical method for that. Clearing, it's the simplest version of the description. Look at two traders, A trader and B trader. B trader, there are economic interaction, and only after half or 1 year, compare the quantity of the trade, and necessary pay only after the differences for the trade. I hope you understand. This is avoid the direct paying for each interaction. Only after half year, 1 year, 2 year, this is the age of, this is the term of comparison. And the last one, commission trade. Commission trade. The most important commission, regional commission trade, textile industry of Silesia. Silesia is a southern province of Poland. And a trader, or not trader, artisan of textile industry receive a price of textile only after the German trader sold out the textile. A little bit later, this was some kind of credit. Probably you know, it's a commission trade. For example, if somebody left on the shop some value, for example, this watch, and received the money after the watch, only after the solding out. Good. But this construction with northern pole and the southern pole, and the meeting point between the northern and southern pole, it's a Champagne Brie. In the 14th century, this was the heyday in the 13th century, 14th century, collapsed. Which were the reason of the collision? The first one, a climate deterioration. Started one climate period at the beginning, at the turn of 13th and the 14th century, named to Little Ice Age. Somebody listened about the Little Ice Age? Okay. Little Ice Age, this is the coldest period, whole of human civilization. Whole of human, not only the European, human civilization. Why? Because probably you know that majority of human evolution unfolded on the time of Great Ice Age. This is the distinct Great and the Little Ice. Great Ice Age started 2.5 million years ago. Okay. For example, from the two poles of the Earth cover, ice cover, even reached the northern recent coastline of Europe. It's huge quantity of ice cover northern and southern poles of Earth. Moreover, in consequence of increase of ice cover, water level of global ocean lower 100 meters. For example, if somebody would like to walk to British Isles, it's possible. Walking to Iceland, it's possible. And some period, even Mediterranean Sea, it's dried out. Easy to walking, for example, from Northern Africa to Europe. Basically different. Okay, but 12,000 years ago, closed a great ice age, and the water level rose and changed the climate basically. But, very important to mention, recently the most important global problem is global warming. But a little bit contradiction that we are living in ice age, which is the basis of contradiction. Because there is a definition, at the beginning of this course I spoke about a lot of definition. The definition of ice age, there are ice on the poles. Majority, if geological age, majority on the history, geological history of Earth, weren't ice cover on the poles. Therefore, but we are living in artificial environment. And majority of developed countries not able to survive if the artificial environment disappeared, and which are the most important pillars of Anthropocene. It's an artificial environment. A cheap water and a cheap energy. Without these pillars, not able to survive, but it's other chapter. Turn back to the story. Little Ice Age, we can compare which is the differences between the Great Ice Age and the Little Ice Age. The Great Ice Age are global average of temperature more or less 5 degrees Celsius lower. A Little Ice Age which unfolded between 14th and the 19th century only 1 Celsius degree lower. But it's dangerous. Look at, for example, probably you know the tale of Dickens, Charles Dickens, British author, which is the landscape in England on the time of Little Ice Age, snow cover, and the people who are walking on the landscape frozen. Recently, if snowfall there is in British Isle, on the BBC there is a breaking news. Exceptional. Yeah, climate change. Climate changed in the past, and climate will change in the future. Okay, climate deterioration means the climate at the turn of 13th and 14th century became colder. In consequence of colder climate, a vegetation period shorter and the area of cultivation smaller. Therefore, on that time, behind the European population, 80% majority of European population, primary producer. Therefore, for them, it's a critical question, critical problem. And each of the pyramid of European society based to peasant, based to year by year agrarian production. Climate deterioration, it's very dangerous for the contemporaries. The second one, in consequence of climate change, appeared a very special term, green harvest. Green harvest means a vegetation period so cool that no time for ripening cereals. Therefore, harvesting under ripening condition of the seeds, ate, and in the stomach start different form of the sickness. It's a vomit and the fever. On the contemporaries name to the fever of Saint Antoine. Antoine it's a martyr of early Christian period who died on the he burned by Roman soldier, I remember. Therefore, it's proliferate underfeeding, partly underfeeding. Two kinds of underfeeding there are: qualitative underfeeding, not enough fine element of the feeding, vitamin, nutrition, trace element, so and so, and the quantitative underfeeding, not enough calorie. Both disappear in Europe, and overpopulation. If we are following how changed the population of Europe. We're starting on the time of Roman Empire. On the time of Roman Empire, estimated population of Europe are approximately 50 million. In consequence of Dark Age and local civil wars, decreased European population around 20 million. After regeneration of European kingdoms and the civilization, to the 10th century reached again a 50 million, the same level which estimate on the time of Roman Empire, the heyday of Roman Empire. And follow the recovery and reached 90 million. This is the great wave of recovery. And approach the ceiling of survival, the highest productivity of European population, and breaking back. But look at the story, overpopulation. Underfeeding, I mentioned quantitative and qualitative underfeeding. It's possible I told you about this problem, which is the reaction of the body for underfeeding. In critical situation, sickness, epidemics and so, but the moderate size I spoke about yet. How react the human body? No? Okay. The temperate reaction decrease the size. I remember that I spoke on the cereal culture about this problem. Because there is a generalization that the Asian people it's a short. It's not true. Look at the world record book, the tallest man, whole of the humankind, Chinese. But underfeeding, in consequence of more generation underfeeding, increase and decrease the population size. For example, in the modern society, in consequence its balanced nutrition increased generation by generation, 2 or 3 centimeters, the average size of human body. Underfeeding. There is a generalization later I will speak about. In the critical situation, according to some theory, activate a braking mechanism. If the population overflow, it's braking mechanism starting and try to stop the overpopulation. But look at this story. This is the climate reconstruction. Very easy to identify the medieval warm period. This is the age when the Viking sailor sailed to Iceland, Greenland, and the eastern coast of Americas, and colonized almost whole of the North Atlantic Ocean. This is the medieval warm period. Not by chance, on this period, for example, were vineyards on the southern part of British Isle and even in Norway. Even in Norway. Why so important? Because the Christian customs, there is a Celtic and important, crucial, the wine, the drinking of the wine. And started the Little Ice Age. We can follow the trajectory of climate deterioration. Little Ice Age named because the most important and most obvious evidence of climate deterioration increased the size of glacier, mountain glacier. Somebody walked on the surface of mountain glacier? Nobody. Necessary travel to alpine area. I spent 1.5 years in Switzerland, in the Bern University, and unbelievable place, unbelievable. Moving very slowly, 3 or 5 or 10 centimeters per week. This is the frozen river, the glacier frozen river. There is a moving, but very slowly, very slowly. And the contemporary try to realize the position of glacier. Why so important? Why so important? Probably you know the Milka chocolate, which is the color of coal. It's a purple. Some years ago, for example, in Hungarian kindergarten, the pupil asked which is the normal color of cattle. Majority answer purple. Because no direct connection to the cattle and cows, therefore only chocolate, one source of information. Why so important for the Swiss people cattle? Because a mountain area like Alps, ideal place for animal husbandry. No other chances because no fertile area where possible, for example, produce cereals, produce vegetables, only animal husbandry. And there is a special rhythm of animal. Somebody met personally with cattle or cow. How many liters of water drinking one cattle? Nobody? 50, not 15, 50. Huge quantity, which is the size of cattle. It's a change according to species from 500 kilograms to 800 kilograms. Large animal, very large animal. And produce a milk for milk production necessarily drink huge quantity of water. And there is a special animal husbandry on the alpine region. Winter time survive the animal in the valleys, how the name is, on the crandle, not crandle, stable, in the buildings, anyway, it's a stable. And if springtime open the vegetation, walking up step by step. But it's very fertile area. In consequence, for example, in the alpine area, more than 1,000 millimeter precipitation are. Therefore, a green grazing land, this is the fingerprint of alpine animal husbandry. But the shortage is the drinking places. And which are the best drinking places? Huge herd of cattle, the melting water of glaciers. And the contemporaries, when drove up the huge herd, more hungry cattle, to the end of glacier. The glacier, in consequence of this is the snow cover line, melting and continue as a stream, a water stream. It's ideal place making artificial lake, it's glacier lake, ideal place for drinking a cattle. When animals drove up, this is the basis, this is the up stable of the cattle. And when for example, construct a stable and a hut for the shepherd, it's a small temporary settlement. And on the time of warming, glacier is melt up. On the period of cold, it's cooling, it's moved down and destroyed each of construction. Therefore, the alpine population realized and remember which is the rhythm of change of glacier. Because on the time of warming left the temporary settlement, on the time of cooling destroyed all of that. Therefore, a glacier indicator in the historical documentary sources even, indicator of the climate change. And the alpine population wrote down the information about the glacier moving. And if make a diagram, later I will move a diagram about it. Okay, how we can understand the consequences of crisis of 14th century? The first scholar who would like to describe the reason of the demographical crisis was Thomas Robert Malthus, a British priest and demographer and polymath. Everybody knows which is the polymath. Polymath, the scholar who not specialized to one discipline, but it's moving on different discipline on the time. Whole of the knowledges try to summarize. And Thomas Robert Malthus was one of the last polymath of the 18th, at the turn of the 18th and the 19th century. And 18th and the 19th century was the great demographical blowing up and quite similar to the 14th century. And try to understand which is the mechanism. And he described this process according to principle of Malthus. The first, population growth exponential. What means the population growth exponential? Look at the one couple, wife and husband, which is the fertile period for the woman, started approximately 14 years old. Look at the play of Romeo and Juliet. How old was she? 14 years old. This is the starting position according to fertility. Which is the closing age? Around 14. It's 26 years fertile period. How many births possible in this 26 years. It's simplified a little bit in 24. 12 birth. This is the maximal fertility. 12 birth. And very high infantile mortality. Each second baby died before 10th anniversary. Therefore, had chance for survival 6 children, sorry. And if we calculate one couple, wife and husband, and triple, able to triple one generation. This is the maximal demographical capacity. Therefore, this is the reason why the first principle of Malthus is population, growth of population, potentially exponential. The second one, agrarian productivity, able to increase 10 plus or minus. Therefore, is only arithmetical, much slower. Therefore, open the Caesar time by time between the potential demographical increase and the agrarian carrying capacity. And the final conclusion of Malthus breaks in the critical situation when open the Caesar, activate, breaks. The first is epidemics, and the second one wars, and the last one famines, which able to close the Caesar between the carrying capacity and the demographical growth. This is the one. But very important to mention, this is the inherent nature of the science, not only one solution for the problem. Look at the other one. The first one, a different version of the solution of the Malthus. This is the basically try to describe the crisis according to carrying capacity and demographical growth, and in consequence of break mechanism, it's a closed. The source problem, the resource problem. But there are other solutions for the reason of the crisis. The second one, changing balance between population and structure of land ownership. What mean? It's basically mean inheritance system. Inheritance system. In Europe, on the Middle Ages, had two types of the inheritance system. The second one, primogeniture, in the Latin version primogenitur. First born son receive everything. Therefore, the useless part of the children necessarily find a job for them. How try to, in the nobility, mean, how try to find and how able to find a solution? Because everything received first-born son. This is the time of crusade. Reconquering of Holy Land on the Near East. And the surplus of contemporary Christian mobility moving to the crusade. Not by chance, before a great crisis, it's closing down this exit to the direction of Holy Land and lost the last fort of Kingdom of Jerusalem. It's Akkon. It's a last, and no way out from Europe. Primogeniture produce very high surplus. Useless people. It's a very old category even in the literature, the useless. This is able to make overpopulation a primogeniture. But look at the other one, a parallel inheritance. Everybody received the same slice from the estate, from the properties. But it's the family, it's very active, and generation by generation increase the population, decrease the size of estate. It's a dwarf estate, which not able carry resources of household or family. Therefore, decrease the size of estate. and a parallel inheritance system able make a how the name is, subsistence crisis. Subsistence crisis. And look at the last one. So, under direction. Complex relation between population, agrarian production, and the market. It's a very complex problem. Only one critical element I mentioned. Look at, for example, a continental area. In the continental area, no way transport one place to other a bulky products. A bulky is a huge quantity of the products. Before construction of railway network. Before railway network, no real bulky trade communication inside of Europe. Not by chance, the largest cities founded on the lakeside, like Stockholm, like a riverside, like Paris, or like in the coast area of sea, like Amsterdam. Why? Because large communication, transporting foods and living materials, only maritime trade or sea or waterborne trade possible. After the construction on the second half of the 19th century, the railway network, it's open the continental area. But before the 19th century, no bulky trade inside of the continent. And maybe one area, one region produce surplus, and the surplus ate by pigs. Other region, nobody knows. It's in consequence of harvest failure, the people dying in underfeeding or epidemics. But no information from one region to other, and no devices transport the surplus one place to other. Not by chance, the first newspaper which published in Europe, it was an economic newspaper in the 16th century. Not with novels and the poems, but the prices, list of prices. Because if somebody would like to transport products one place to other, necessary to forecast the profit rate. Okay, therefore, maybe a problem, the communication and the transporting shortage between regions. Poorly integrated on the time Europe in the feudal area, a lot of physical obstacle, transaction cost is very high. Very interesting, only one mention about it. In the feudal area, the boundaries, the outer boundaries of country, nobody knows. If somebody in the contemporary asks, which is the boundary between Hungarian kingdom and the Polish kingdom? Nobody knows. Because the outer boundary, no meaning. No, for example, military control, no civil control, no control. Inner boundary, for example, between estate, nobleman estate, between on the boundary of the cities, free cities. This was the place of military control. Inner control was a real military control, and between the estates. Therefore, on each inner boundary on the country, necessary paying to fees. Like avalanche, increase the expense of the transport, necessary pay on the boundary of the city, on the boundary of estate, of nobleman and the landlord, and so and so. Therefore, the transaction cost very, very high inside of the country. The locality of market access, nobody knows which is the price, for example, of wheat in Nuremberg or Buda, capital of contemporary Hungary. And a feudal system would like to solve the local problems. For example, good example of the feudal mechanism and the feudal mentality, the guilds, local guilds. Local guilds produce only inhabitant of city. And nobody interested the problem of the neighborhood, only the local city. The feudal system, very scattered and very divided country, divided construction. Okay, how destroyed a great European demographical recovery, a Black Death. A Black Death means a black plague, a bubonic plague. It's a bacterial infection. The first appearance of bacterial plague as a bacterial infection described on the Roman Empire, age of Roman Empire. The second one, second return of bubonic plague is on the 16th century, on the ruling years of Justinianus, Eastern Roman Emperor. And some picture about it's a bubonic plague. The bubonic plague, two kinds of the plague are lung plague, you know which is the lung, and the bubonic plague. If we compare the proportion of the infection, 10% lung plague, it's not so important, it's a peripheral, and the bubonic plague, 90% of infection. Look at the mechanism. It's a bacterial infection. It's distributed in the lymphatic glands, therefore named a bubonic, because its bubes appear under the shoulder, on the neck, and different part of the body. Basically, are on the verge two homeland of the plague. The first one, East Africa, eastern part of Africa. The second one, Central Asia, outskirts of Himalaya. This is the homeland of, these are the homeland of plague. How can be one area a homeland? A homeland might be that in this area lived or recently living rodents. Here, rodents. Rodents, it's 12 different species of rodents who are bearer of bacteria, but never have a problem for that because there is a special immunity. In the modern curing, this is the mechanism, finding the animal who bearer of bacteria, virus or fungi, but in consequence of immunity, special immunity, no develop a sickness. And the vaccination based to the special material of immunity. Living in this area, and the most important vectors, distributor of infection are, fleas. Everybody had a fleas during his or her biography. How? Cat. But it's very interesting. I was a child in the 60s and 70s and slept together with a cat. Recently I sleeping together, but it's other cat. And my cat on my village, it's a free spirit, wandering everywhere. And I imagine the differences with hygienic and not hygienic people. Hygienic people had a small number of fleas. Not hygienic people, more, outnumber of fleas. But I wasn't able to imagine no fleas. Because live together and work together with animals, at least 5 fleas I had continuously. Therefore, I am a professional in the flea hunting. You know the flea hunting? You kill personally. Unbelievable. We will speak about this problem later and change the experiences and the memories about the hunting. It's killing, of course, it's killing, but it's acceptable because it's a symbiosis with the fleas. It's dangerous because the flea able to proliferate a lot of kind of infection. Okay, look at the story. There are, the first step are rodents, who are the bearer. But how able distribute infection? Basically, each of great epidemics starting with dry period. On the time of dry period, everything it's cancelling, it's dying, disappearing. But each drought, after some period, it's closed. And the environment flora and fauna try to recover. But which is the quickest in the recovery? The prey animals, of course. And the rodents are prey animals. Prey animals. The term between the first impression and the first generation, 3 weeks time. Look at the predators, even the birds or mammals. The age of pregnancy is more months. Therefore, the prey animals who are the bearer of bacteria overpopulate and left the homeland, wandering everywhere, and met with rats. Rats, you know which is the rat. Here. Rats. Rats living together with humans. And this is the chain of infection. The first one, drought, the prey animals who are the bearer of prey bacterial infection, moving out, wandering, and met with rats, but the rats victims similarly, and which is the mechanism of vectoring? Flea, it's drinking blood for the symbiosis. It's no other option because only this one which able to digest. But infected blood, it's frozen down in the mouth and the stomach of flea. Therefore, majority of blood never arrive to the stomach because frozen down. In consequence of that, a flea became a very crazy mental condition and jump and bite and bite. And the infected blood on the mouth, it's after the biting different animals, it's flowing into the blood, blood circulation, blood circulation, and infected the animal. This is the vector, because in the contemporaries and much later, even the modern time, a general prejudice that the rats are the infector. It's not true. The fleas are the infector of humans. But very interesting, it's a special race of rat species. It's a gray rat. Gray rat. I spoke about Harry Potter. No? Majority of students, I suppose, read or saw or watched the movie. In the story, there is how the name is. It's an animal magical practice. How the name? One actor able transform to be gray rat.
Is that from Harry Potter?
No, a story of Harry Potter. But one former friend of his father, Peter Pettigrew.
Yeah.
Peter Pettigrew. Yeah, and why so interesting? Because it's a very fine literature mention, because in the medieval English literature, a gray rat, this is the smallest rat, one of the smallest rat, it's a almost domesticated animals. Because a lot of, for example, small pieces of feed, it's left on the pavement, cleaned by gray rat. It's very small animal, but ideal because nobody bothering a gray rat proliferate the infection. Okay, but look at the story. First, drought. It's a bearer of infection. It's left the homeland, met with rats, different rats, black rats and gray rats, and proliferate the infection, even the final position of human. Some picture about the infection, therefore named a Black Death, because slowed down the blood circulation, and step by step on the peripheral blood circulation appeared the black and frozen down of blood, finger of head and feet. Okay, this is the mechanism, a simple description of the mechanism of infection. The first 3 drinks red blood that carries the bacteria. Bacteria multiply on the free guts. Gut clobbered with bacteria, free bites the human, regulate the blood into open wound and the human infected. This is the mechanism. But the contemporaries, nobody knew that how appeared. Generally, as I mentioned, it's possible in the introductory lecture, everybody agreed this is the punishment of God for evilness of humans. This was the general agreement. And the most important way of proliferation of epidemics are and were the trading routes. I hope you remember this map. The green, the red one is the Great Silk Road, and the blue one, the Great Spice Road. This infection arrived on the red line on the Great Silk Road. We knew the place when the first European infected is located in Kaffa. It's founded by a Greek colonizer in the antiquity named Theodosia, and recently named on the Crimean Peninsula Feodosia. And the trajectory and the mechanism of infection took under siege Kaffa Genoese forts and wasn't able to occupy. Therefore, applied an early version of biological weapons, dead body with catapults, it's up to the city, it's proliferated the infection, and Genoese trader transported to Europe and proliferated everywhere infection of bubonic plagues. And this made the deepest humanitarian catastrophe whole of the European civilization. Estimated population of Europe, it's 19 million, and 40 million, more than 1/3 of contemporaries died very quickly. It was exceptional. Why? Because in former time by time, hiding up, rosing up infection. But the most important victims of epidemics, the people who lived in the periphery of society. It's an underclass. But bubonic plague killed everybody. Not only the beggars, not only the poor peoples, but the prince, the kings, the bishops, everybody. It was a very random infection. The first reaction of the contemporary, everybody agreed, this is the punishment of God. How we can solve the problem of punishment of God? This activate a scapegoating. In the contemporary crisis, activate similarly the scapegoating mechanism necessary to find the people who are responsible for the problem, for the crisis, for the high mortality. Who are the most popular in Europe? Who are the typical aliens? Not from the space, from the universe, local area. The most popular alien of contemporaries, the Jews. The second are Muslims, mostly in the Mediterranean Sea, and the Armenians. In the contemporaries' Catholic point of view, heretics, Christian by heretics, and killed lot of aliens on the crisis period. Women. This is the first great period of witch hunting. Not easy to survive witch hunting, because the first operation of the witch hunting, for example, take under control one woman. For example, I accuse you, you are or not a witch. The first step, I ask, you are a witch or not?
I'm not.
Okay, this is the first step. It's possible, it's a free option, but ask the leader of the jury, the president of the jury, one guy who specialized to torture, you know, witches, and walking to the subway of the city hall. This is the cellar of torture, and show to you the mechanism of the torture devices. The first is pushing out your eyes, other one is break your legs, other one is hurt your stomach, not so good for health. Okay, you saw the devices of the torture, turn back to the jury, I ask, you are witch or not?
I'm still not.
Yo, okay. Walk back to the subway and the trained killer show in mechanism. Seven devices used. If somebody survived the 7 devices, in Hungarian language there is a very special term. If somebody mentioned seven tested criminal, it's very thin, very strong people. Okay, but you rejected the accused of witching. Okay, back. And majority of people, majority of women didn't survive application of devices of the torture. And on this period, killed almost 40 or 50,000 women or 10,000 male, because there is a special category of the witch master for male. Okay, this is and there is another important peculiarity of the witch hunting, because somebody lived in the traditional time, society, quite a traditional society. Foreign people come from which countries? We are Hungarians all. It's a free identity election. Okay, but I spent my childhood in quite traditional society, quite a traditional. And the word of male and the female divided very harshly, very harshly. It's two different words. And on the time of witch hunting, the most important victims, old ladies. And these old ladies specialized, for example, for curing. It's a wise woman named traditionally. And was arrivals of graduated doctors came from universities, and doctors accused with witch practice, a wise woman. Why? Because the doctors only used the classical, traditional, sometimes very dangerous for the health technology. And the wise woman used, for example, teas. It's a soft curing, teas and, for example, roots, for example, mushrooms, and so on and so on and so on. And accused, and you was able to follow the mechanism. No chance for survival, practically. Moreover, an old wise woman were the leader of female community. And this was a good option for the leader of male community, cancelling the rivals. And the word of female left without leaders. Therefore, the crisis is good occasion to killing the rivals or cancelling the rival. Okay, women and witch hunting. And the flagellant was the people who no accused other person, but declared we are responsible. Our awareness, our bad behavior. Therefore, which is the solution of the problem, of the crisis? Approaching day of judgment. Day of judgment. It's close the real word. Jesus Christ will return, and which is the normal behavior on the time of day of judgment? Nobody paying in the taxes. This is the worst news for the leader of contemporary society, because it's very simple construction. It's a pyramid. 80% of society paying the tithe for the landlords. If nobody would like to pay, it's no small movement. 1 million member had a flagellant brotherhood. Not by chance. The most cruel were the contemporary landlords, again the flagellant. Would like to stop the proliferation that nobody paying the taxes. Okay, but how try to solve the crisis by contemporaries? How try to defend? If somebody would like to drink and eat, no problem. We try to enjoy, it's very late, somehow necessary to survive. Cheers. The first one, a quarantine. A quarantine, it's an Italian verb in Venetian dialect. It means 40 days. 40 days. If somebody arrived from infected area, closed to some place for 40 days. 40 days enough for appearance the symptoms of infection. Not by chance that you remember the age of COVID? Okay. No better idea, even in the 21st century. Apply the technology of the 14th century. Closed. It was unbelievable because, for example, when I started to work, very difficult to identify some event happened in which year. The COVID, it was a milestone. Before and after. It's very easy to identify. I remember we played, for example, with my friends that each of the rooms take 1 bottle of beer. And we organized the pub field trip, only walking, drink 1 bottle of beer and walking to the other room, 1 other bottle. This was a local field trip of the pub, but the quarantine. Closing the people for 1 island, 1 building, 1 cave, and wait for appearance of symptom of infection. Other one, extenuation of bacteria. What means the extenuation of bacteria? 2 trajectory, bacteria and the human. If we are try to follow the trajectory, in the bacteria, there were strong, middle, and weak. Which is the most successful? Of course, the weakest one. Why? Because the strong one kill very quickly infected people. No chance for proliferation, other one. The quickest one almost never and very lately kill the infected people, therefore had a lot of occasion touching other people for infect and proliferate the free population. Therefore, generation by generation, the proportion of weak bacteria increase. Other one, look at the human. A human, some part of the human had a natural immunity. Who are the highest chance for survival? Who had natural immunity. Generation by generation increase the rate of population with natural immunity. And very interesting, no clinical curing, no efficient remedies, but in the middle of 18th century, stronger immunity, weaker bacteria, stronger immunity, weaker, and in the middle of 18th century, plague epidemics disappeared. Natural. Time by time, for example, delta of Danube River, India, different parts appear the infection of bubonic plague, but no epidemics, never. Okay, self-regulating family system. I spoke about former time at the beginning of this lecture, exponential demographical growth. One couple, even in the traditional time, able to triple the size of family. 6 children. But how can breaking down the fertility? A male not usable for the breaking mechanism, it's an animal. But look at the women, the socialization of women. The most efficient technology, rising up age of first marriage. Rising up. Why? Because you remember, one potential fertility, 24 years and 12 births. Half of babies, children, able to survive and able to produce 6 offspring. Very demographical terms, but 6 offspring. How able to slowing down the fertility? Rising up the first marriage, age of first marriage. For example, in England, on the age of Tudors, 16th century, deepest crisis, whole of the English or British history. Average age of first marriage was 30 years old. 30 years old. The late marriage, not a modern innovation, it was a demographical breaking mechanism, which the traditional society applied in the critical situation. Slow down the fertility, slow down the productivity. Rose up to 30 years old, left 10 years for productivity, able for 4 births, 2 died, and only the simple recovery slowed down the demographical growth. And why I mentioned a first marriage. How many years, how long live together one couple in the traditional time? How many years? You know the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4. How many years?
40.
40. 40, one offer. Other one?
14.
14. Last one?
50.
50. 50 or 15?
50.
Yeah, 7 years. 7 years. Recently, in the modern time, in Hungary, how long living together? One couple. I don't know why, I don't know its validity of living together, but recently even 7 years. But in the traditional time, didn't necessarily divorce. Why? One or other die. Much higher the mortality. Recently, the death offer of old people like me. But in the traditional time, each age possible to die. Look at, for example, a picture of Bosch, the very famous. Not only the old people dying, each generation. For example, appear a bubonic plague, appear a military campaign, maybe. In the traditional time, didn't necessarily divorce because so high the mortality. A lot of people thinking about the traditional time, living together more decades. One special period happened that lived together for decades. At the turn of 19th and 20th century. Why? Because the custom and the behavior of traditional time, it's survived, no divorce, living together, but the modern clinical curing appeared. Live together for decades. But not by chance. For example, in Hungary was a very popular poisoning the husband with arson. You know, it was a very special term in Hungarian 20th century history. It's a arzin's woman. It's a poison. poison. It's water drunk, pour the poison. And no so harsh clinical curing in the villages and the farm area, and died. Nobody found it. Nobody found them. And for example, there is a special story about area of Szeged, this city, very interesting for the foreign student. It's a dangerous place. Was a very strange criminal, wrote, for example, a play on the theater about the story, Stefan with pipe, you know, Stefan with pipe. Stefan with pipe was a killer. Killed the old drunkard husband. And he, or more correctly, he wore a male clothes, but really she was a woman. And organized artificial suicide and killed 17 husbands. Because somehow necessary to solve the problem of old, useless, drunkard husband's problem. It's a local innovation, startup, according to contemporary knowledges. Okay, because living together for decades, it's very exhausting, very exhausting. For example, divorce, much more peaceful solution for this problem. Okay, maternal, self-regulating family system, first marriage, because in the traditional time, it was a normal, one wife or husband lived in the first and second and the third and fourth marriage. It was a normal, not necessarily divorce. One or other might die in consequence of epidemics or military campaign. Some picture about the flagellant who walked on the street, armless and singing different choir, and witch hunting professionalized when two Dominican friars published Malleus Maleficarum, the hammer against the witches. It was a handbook, which are the sins and indicators if somebody behaved like a witch. Okay. Self-regulating family system, I spoke about fertility period between the 14 and 40 years, high infantile mortality rate, age of women first marriage, life expectancy at birth 20 to 30. But very interesting, somebody studied demography yet? Demography. Because if somebody is speaking about the life expectancy, somebody will tell your name. Hi. Your name, you will, okay. Because majority of the lecture you participate in, therefore. Okay. Life expectancy calculate at birth. 20 or 30 years mean at birth, but very high the rate of mortality, but somebody survived the first 10 years, improved the chance of survival, life expectancy. Each age possible to calculate the life expectancy. In the traditional time, the critical period was between the birth and the 10 years anniversary. If somebody survived, improved, not only 20 or 30, but 50 or 60 years. But very interesting, for example, a Hungarian male society. I don't know, in foreign student, the local peculiarity probably know much better than me. But probably you know that which is the proportion at birth between male and female. Who are more, male or female at birth? Male. 105 to 100. But a male, more fragile construction. Therefore, around 32 years old, equalize. 100 to 100. But in Hungarian society, because the lifestyle of Hungarian male not so healthy, decrease so much the proportion of the male for heartbreak, for blood circulation problem and so, and cancer, that whole of the population, much higher the proportion of female. Because generation by generation increase the proportion of female. It's very asymmetrical, the tree of two, male and female. And therefore, the old male who is good condition, one sociologist named the Caesar of the last season. Okay, but turn back to the story. In my case, for example, the most critical closing down critical period of human demography for the human male, the critical period between 40 and 55. This is the critical period for heart attack and cancer and blood problem. And if somebody survived this critical period, life expectancy up. I am 60 years old, therefore the future is mine. Okay, but turn back. Who are the solution for this problem? Two directions after the crisis. The problem of crisis, subsistence crisis, appeared not only at local community level, but the state level too. Two directions launched the development of European state. The one direction, it's left the feudal construction. For example, Poland and the Polish Commonwealth and Spanish Naples lived according to old style, but a majority of countries turned toward the centralization. England, France, Russia turned toward centralization. It's a lot of positive consequence. Increase the seigneurial use, improve the coordination, urban monopolies and the feudal laws, systematize legal codes, weights and the measure, and reduce the probability of the civil wars. Forms of adaptation, very important consequence of great humanitarian catastrophe and the subsistence crisis for the survival. Improved the quality of life, not life expectancy, it's how the name is, living standards. Improve the living standards. Why so important? Because we are a modern people, which is the most important, one of the most important prejudice of modern people. Everything improve step by step. Next year, following year, we'll construct better iPhone than launched recently. Everything improved. Because in the modern society, the modern world, in consequence of self-sustainable economic growth, everything improved. At least in our brain, our modern brain, the better is a newer one. But if we open the way, open the point of view, realize it's not true. Not true. Look at the living standards. Calculation of living standards, not so complicated. Look at, for example, a carpenter, artisan, receive a salary today, or received a salary on the 14th century, 16th century, 17th century, 18th century. How used the salary? How many persons used for lodging? How many used for entertainment? How many used for example, luxury consumption? How many saved? Therefore, different society, different age, comparable. It's named a basket of consummation. Basket of consummation. The highest living standards was in the 20th century, of course. But the second one, the second century, according to level of living standards, 15th century. Not the 19th, not the 18th, 15th century. Why? Because the loss of humans so high that necessary to pay the work of survivors. Therefore, this is the other side of the coin. Living standards up, necessary to pay for the work. Good. And the living standards improved. Agriculture, because traditionally, because as I mentioned, I came from a quasi-traditional society, it's very, very conservative. If somebody accustomed one, for example, meals, no change, no change. But one hunger increased the openness. After the crisis, introduced artichoke, rice, spinach, sugarcane, and the eggplants. In consequence of the crisis, proliferated new plants, improved the chance of survival. Appears and disappeared the hops in not only for brewery, making the beer, but eating. Flax across the continent. You know which is the flax? It's very small and very high content of trace element. Good forms of adaptation, organized monetary unions, use the euros, contemporary euros. For example, Venetian ducats was the contemporary euros. Large area used the same ducats, same coins. Venetian ducats and the Florentine florin, and organized regional fairs. Try to somehow homogenize large area trade and communicate between different fairs. Good distribution system improved. Some area decline in consequence of crisis like southern improved the position, southern and northwestern Italy, Castile, Holland, southern Germany, former centers stagnated or declined, Flanders, Tuscany, Sicily, Catalonia, market dependent widening, improved the cattle trade and the trade of metal, precious metal and industrial metals, and this is the conclusion. And this is the last slide today, which is the conclusion. It's great loss, great human loss unfolded in the 14th century, but conclusion in consequence of change of behavior of the contemporary humans is a positive. Why? Look at the conclusion. Stefan Robert Epstein, professor of London School of Economics, and published a very seminal study about this problem. Look at the conclusion. Late medieval crisis is the best understood as exogenous demographic shock, which triggered, it's a trigger, you know, the trigger on the shotgun or the process institutional, this is the crucial term, creative destruction. Creative destruction. I will return a little bit later, that raised the West European economy to a higher growth pace by aligning incentive structure more closely with the exploitation of technological potential. How we can describe the creative destruction? Creative destruction means some historical situation not able solve the problem, the traditional, former institutional and behavioral system. In this critical situation, with large loss, 40 million people died in consequence of bubonic plague, but the contemporaries and the survivors understood the feudal system not efficient. The feudal system based a local identity and local power of landlords and launched to the direction of centralization, direction of some element of the trade, trading logic and the capitalism, and finally the modernization and the modern Europe, which are living recently, formed from the crisis of 14th century. Because the most important innovations, centralization, using a regional currency, using an integrated fair and market system, invented after the crisis and introduced after the crisis. Therefore, it's a good example of the creative destruction. very high rate of the Ross, but opened the way for the formation of modern Europe. Okay, thanks a lot for your attention, and I ask you patience for some minutes yet.